CrowSong Lodge, and again, I have another video for you. Today's video, we're going to talk about how energy flows around the planet. So, it's a big topic, don't mind me, I'm just kind of thinking about it. So when you think about energy, there's like the scientific side, and then we have like the pseudo-scientific side. And I know a lot of us bristle at the word pseudo-scientific, but today we're not going to do that. Today we're just going to acknowledge that pseudo-scientific means that it sounds like science and it's based on scientific principles, but science has yet to address or prove or confirm that things actually work this way. And that's fine. It's fine with me, at least, because I strongly feel that science just hasn't gotten there yet. It can't address whether or not that part of things is true or not, and science is advancing quite rapidly, so I have no doubt that it will. So that's how we're going to use pseudo-scientific today. But it's important to know the difference between what science has managed to confirm and what it has not. And that's okay. We don't need everything confirmed by science. It's nice, but we don't need it. So, moving right along. The scientific part of things is that everything has energy in it. Electrical impulses and all that good stuff. I forget the science, but it's there. It's in the cells and the atoms and the molecules and all that good stuff. Every bit of matter has energy in it. And there are particles permeating the air and the water and everything on the planet. There is no micromillimeter in the whole world, on the surface, under the surface, in the atmosphere, in the air, above the atmosphere, that doesn't have some sort of energy in it. In fact, that's where the theory of dark energy and dark matter comes into it, because there's this like weird void where they can't detect energy, but there's still an effect as if there's energy there, so they call it dark because they can't detect it. Anyway, moving right on. There's energy everywhere. That is science, and it's concentrated in different amounts. So physical objects like this dark mass right here, this is my cat, that you cannot see. So like this crystal has more energy in it than this feather in my hair. Okay, and the rate of movement of the energy, the electrical charge in this quartz is significantly more than in this feather. Not just because it's a solid object, but because it's quartz, and quartz just, it's conductive to electricity and it carries a charge. It's why we use it in computer components and stuff. And not feathers. So different objects have more energy. Solid objects typically have more energy than permeable objects like the air. That's the science part of things. In a nutshell, there are exceptions. I know that. Shush in the comments. Now the pseudoscience of that is how these additional particles kind of flow around the planet that can be manipulated through things like spells and meditation and other forms of energy work. Okay, like Reiki or Feng Shui or visualization or psychic abilities, or, as I said, spell work. This is the pseudoscience of things. Now there is some scientific basis for this, but it isn't totally confirmed. But there is some evidence that there are energy concentrations in the air and on the land that are not part of physical matter. That's science. The rest is going to be pseudoscience. So the way this energy flows is very similar to the way air currents or water works. In other words, it likes the lower areas of land. So if you have mountains and a valley, like, you know, like a V, it will collect in the lower part. Like gravity, you know? So it'll flow downward and collect in the lower parts of things. And that's what it likes to do. So if you have a hole in your floor, because someone put a well in your living room, you are likely to lose all the energy in your home down your well. So you should cover that up. It's absurd, but that's how it works. It also can be affected by physical objects and will thus flow around it. So in our example where we have mountains, the energy will want to flow around those physical objects. It'll go to the lower areas and find its way around. And so it creates this flow, and of course, just like water, it is naturally drawn to flow towards the ocean because the ocean is lower than land. So that's why you'll find a lot of the really high energy places near large bodies of water, because just like water, energy follows the lay of the land and ends up in the low spots and where water is. It's really fabulous that way, very convenient. And so that is one way. Now, it's not as affected by gravity as water is. So while it does want to lie in low areas, it doesn't have to be all the way on the ground. So it might be up here instead of down here. My hands are not on the screen when I do this. So it might be up here instead of down here. Which means you might have the energy flowing along your ceiling for some reason instead of along your floor. Or it may be flowing that entire distance from the floor to the ceiling because it does not feel the need to be impacted all the way down, or compacted, one of those, because gravity doesn't affect it the way it does physical matter. So it can flow well. Now, this would be easier if I had prepared things ahead of time, but that's not how I like to do things. So you can take things, physical objects, and because energy flows like air or water, you can use physical objects to affect the way the energy flows. For instance, I just dug out my hand fan. So one way that you can move energy around a space is to simply fan it. So here, because I'm fanning in this direction, you can tell because the wind, I can tell because of the wind flow, but you know, I'm kind of batting the wind and the wind is going that way. I'm also pushing the accompanying air that way. So if I wanted to cleanse my home, I would simply fan the air out the door. I would lead it that way. And that's what we're doing with a broom when we use the broom to sweep our homes to cleanse it of negative energies. We're sweeping all the old energies out. We're sweeping all the energies out, really. All the ones we can that aren't like embedded in the physical matter, like the walls and the floors. We're sweeping all the energy out, but because energy is super light, we can sweep along the floors and it gets kind of like all the energy in the air. We create a flow, a current towards the door, and then after you're done cleansing, you replace that energy with better energy, and then you have a better environment. Now, if you just sweep the energy out and then leave it, whatever's around is just going to like fill the gap that you left behind, like the energy void. And that's just, you know, it could be good or it could be bad. It's probably going to be a mix of both because that's what's laying around. So that's how energy flows. Now, sometimes there's a concentration of energy. There are certain things that cause energy to concentrate. And a lot of this, you'll see this a lot in indigenous cultures and things that they were left behind, and they're used in current pagan practices. And those are things like labyrinths. Labyrinths aren't like Labyrinth with David Bowie, like with the very tall walls, like big old walking mazes and stuff that you get lost in. Or, you know, more traditionally with the Minotaur in Greece. But they're more like walking meditation paths that are defined. You can usually see your way around them. And they kind of lead you on a spiraling, wending way into the center where then you can have a sit and a meditate. So on that defined pathway, especially if people are traveling it over and over, that flow of bodies will create a flow of energy, and it will pool in that center of the labyrinth. The same is true when we see spirals. So you'll see a lot of spirals in floors. This is Nora. You'll see a lot of spirals on the ground, like in gardens and stuff, and that's what their purpose is. They lead the energy into the center so it can pull there and create kind of a small energy center concentration spot that can be used for whatever. Usually the health of the plants around and the people who live there. Living things take a lot of energy. She's fascinated by my fan. So that's kind of how energy flows on the land. Now you'll find it pools in certain areas. Like I said, certain objects can help draw it. Not just like spirals and labyrinths, but also high concentrations of people or activities, and certain activities, or even highly emotional events with lots of energy in them or charged in them, big rituals and things like that. So it's one of the reasons why Stonehenge is thought to be such a very powerful and energetic space that kind of feels heavy when you visit there, is because so many big holiday celebrations took place there over the years, on top of the fact that after modern people discovered Stonehenge, they continued to put this mental association on it and have resumed those big celebrations over the years. There's a lot of mental energy and focus on the place that has caused energy to gather there as well. So I hope this makes sense. If you look at disciplines like dowsing and feng shui, they talk a lot about how energy flows, and it's really, really fascinating. This does not address how energy flows through the body at all. This is only addresses how it flows. I hope it made sense. If it doesn't, please let me know in the comments and I'll try to do better or answer your questions. This is Nathar at CrowSong Lodge, and I'll talk to you later.